We've come to the end of the letter of James, and I want you to spend the next couple of days going back and reading back over so that you can see sort of the big picture of the book. Sometimes when we zoom in really close, we forget to kind of zoom out and say, okay, what's actually happening in the bigger picture of the book? And I want to give just a broad overview here. Remember, James was writing this letter to Christians who had been spread around the world, some of them because of persecution to the church. And he's telling them how to live wisely. And he's encouraging them to pursue lives to become whole Christians in a broken world. He's telling them how to live lives in a way that pleases God. And he starts out, he talks a lot about suffering and trials and enduring through these things and having hope in Christ. And in the end, he talks about how we need to respond to these moments of suffering and difficulty and sickness with prayer, that all of our lives need to be characterized by prayer in whatever season of life we're in. He talks about how we ought to relate to one another. Remember, he talks about how we need to be quick to hear and slow to speak and slow to anger. And he talks about conflict between Christians and how a lot of the time our mouths get ahead of where we need to go. But he talks about how we need to be doers of the word and not just hearers only, particularly with respect to those who are in need, to those who are poor and underprivileged in our society, that we don't need to be talking anymore about how we need to help those in need, but we need to actually do it. We need to actually help those in need. Otherwise, our faith is worthless. If our faith doesn't lead us to actions that reflect the character of Christ, then our faith isn't really worth anything. And, excuse me, particularly, our faith should affect the words that we speak and how we talk to one another. He talks about the danger and the power that is in our tongues and in the words that we speak, and how we need to be very careful that we are bearing good fruits and not bringing forth the evil fruits of the world with the way that we speak. He says to keep an eye on your hearts whenever passions are raging within you and it's causing conflict. Whenever we're warring against one another, particularly between Christians, we need to look at our hearts and see what kind of war is raging inside of our own hearts that is causing us to have this sort of conflict. We need to humble ourselves before the Lord, not setting ourselves up as being more important than others, not setting ourselves up as the judge over other people, not accumulating wealth for ourselves to retain for ourselves and to build our lives as in this world, giving ourselves comfort and fattening ourselves up, as James would say. The Lord exalts those instead who are humble. He exalts those who are poor, those who are oppressed in the world, those who are persecuted, those who are struggling. Because those people, it says, He has made them rich in faith. That those are the people who go to God because they know they have nothing in this world to offer. They go to God humbly, and it's those people that God lifts up. All of this requires prayer in the good times, in the bad times, because we need God to help us to become whole Christians in a broken world. This is such a beautiful letter from James to these Christians. It's a letter that we can read over and over, and it will constantly challenge us to live in a Christ-like way, to reflect the love and the mercy and the compassion of Christ, to reflect His righteousness and His justice, to reflect the way that He spoke, the way that He live towards those around Him. Let's read this book over and over again and let it inform us how we ought to live our lives. Now, as we return to more consistent in-student gatherings, I'm not going to be making as many of these by-the-book videos. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on some other series like the Answers for Students series. There's going to be a video coming out every single week from the Answers for Students series. And I'm going to be doing a few by-the-book videos that are a little bit more general overview rather than every single day zooming in on one text. But I'm looking so forward to gathering in person with students so that we can actually teach through these passages that you're reading through in person, face to face. So I really look forward to that. I look forward to seeing you. I will be back doing By the Book on a less consistent basis. I would invite you to go watch Answers for Students videos and all of the other content that we're putting out online.